Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Tamal, who is the founder of AppsCode, a cloud native solutions provider. Let's say that. Hi, Tamal.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And Tamal, along with his team, particularly Dipta Roy, Dipto, and Abdullah, we have the pleasure of actually having them in a conversation along with my colleague Don. Hi, Don.
Hello.
Hi. And today we are going to talk about a triage of, how modern cloud native landscape looks like when it comes to data services or data on Kubernetes, let's say that, right? And Apps Code has been at the forefront of providing or creating these innovative solutions, specifically around database as a service, secrets management as a service, backup as a service, and many more that you can actually think of. While I can spend a whole day talking about it, I think it's quintessential to actually hear from the founder and the man himself. Tamal, hi Tamal.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey. Thanks for this opportunity to talk to you and Don today. So happy to tell you about QBV and Apps Code as general. So we at the Apps Code, we have been working on Kubernetes since 2016. At the time I was working at Google as a software engineer, and Kubernetes came out, and it seemed very exciting because inside Google we were using some of those same technology, but kind of this previous generation, you can say. And when Kubernetes came out, we could see that this will be like this next generation of cloud, where we go from this VM based architectures to these container based architectures. And as I was looking into what to do in this space, I found that Kubernetes is pretty good running stateless workloads, right? If you want to run some pods, it does it very easily and natively. But then all these data or stateful applications, it can run it, but then it needs a lot of like handholding to actually do it properly in an efficient manner in this kind of very dynamic environment that is Kubernetes. And that's kind of where we started working on this. Like managing databases on Kubernetes, then how you take backups, okay, how do you secret management, and that's kind of how we ended up with the suite of products that we have today, and to manage these various aspects of data management. So we kind of call us today as like the Kubernetes native data platform. That's kind of what we do, and that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah. Fantastic. So see, I do acknowledge the whole work going on right in this space, and I know that Apps Code has also been making a lot of progress. Talk to me about some of the important achievements or significant milestones in the history of Apps Code, right? Anything that comes to your mind is good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when we started on this journey, right, like build databases on Kubernetes or manage data applications on Kubernetes, I would say this was a pretty controversial idea, right? Like people were saying, oh no, you should be probably just run on cloud or just run it outside Kubernetes. But when we started, it kind of, at least for me as an engineer, I could see that once you start running your regular applications on Kubernetes, it is only natural that you actually bring your whole stack to it, right? Because otherwise you are kind of having to manage this high friction work flow where some of it is on Kubernetes, some of it is outside Kubernetes. Always have to manage and mix them up, and like how do you monitor them? It just becomes a lot more complex if you run them separately. So we said, okay, what if we just run it on Kubernetes? Because if at the end of the day, Kubernetes is really kind of a management or a configuration tool, right? You call it orchestrator for this cluster of Linux servers. And in the previous generation, we were still running databases on Linux servers, maybe bare metal servers or VMs, and why cannot we just do the same with Kubernetes? And we started kind of on the journey, as things kind of also evolve in the Kubernetes world. Like in the beginning there was this, if you remember, there's a TPR, right, like a third-party resources, and then that became like a CRDs kind of became like alpha, beta, eventually GA. You could do a lot of like a validation, right? I mean, back in the day, like if you apply like a kind of a bad YAML, your whole cluster will blow up because it just couldn't like handle that, right? Like I would say like those things were not as something called like a production ready, because people make mistakes in production and your system cannot just crash if that happens. And then like as Kubernetes advanced, like this flex volumes came, then CSI drivers, and now you could actually do all the things you would do in a production type kind of environment, right? When I'm talking about production, what I'm saying is like, okay, you are running a database, right? But eventually at some point your maybe disk fills up. How you expand the disk? If you have a really big database, you cannot just shut it down and restart, right? You have to do it online. Like all those things, over time, Kubernetes started to become feature full, or became like rich enough in terms of its feature set, that it was able to do all those things in a way that you would expect when you are really running like business critical production grade system. And then as that have evolved, we were able to also kind of grow with that, right? Start kind of expanding or kind of making our own sort of operator based solution more and more mature, that we were able to actually get to a point where when you talk to like folks who comes to our website or to emails us like, hey, we are doing this and how we can kind of achieve or run our database in Kubernetes, it was we were able to gain that confidence from there, and like, okay, no, we can do it, right? It really typically DevOps or sort of just the engineers who are trying it, and then once if it works quite a while in their sort of test or sort of just a staging environment, they will probably go and talk to their managers, they will consider using it. And also the adoption or increase of Kubernetes adoption, it became sort of only natural to actually try something like this. And then that's kind of how I would say this journey like it evolved. And now if you look at our current customer base, I mean, we have customers all across like Europe, America, even Middle East, Israel, India. So and people, and it's not just cloud, right? I mean, if you're especially on-prem and you start to adopt to modernize your own sort of infrastructure and adopt Kubernetes, it really becomes quite important that you have some sort of operator-based solution for managing the data applications, because there you really need the help. And that's kind of how over time, we now see that a lot of folks are now using, and these are like, going all the way from, let's say, like, 5G operators in US, they are running their, they have a lot of on-prem data centers all across the US, they are running it to like, let's say, telecom companies in France, like, some of our customers, like, then big people maybe in running like big sort of, big data type of workloads, and they need databases management, like all kinds of places, we now see that it's getting used, in terms of database management solution.
Sure. I think very good reflection on how this journey has been. I think I have 3 key takeaways. Number 1, don't fragment. If you are adopting Kubernetes, don't fragment out part of the stack on Kubernetes while part of it is running as something else. Converge to Kubernetes in a true spirit. The whole Kubernetes paradigm has matured, I think, over last 8-10 years now, and I think it's there to actually support all the enterprise needs in a scalable fashion. Number 1. Second is, you said that that the game changers like AWS, Google, everybody else, right? I mean, they have these huge database offerings, right? And obviously, rightly so, each one has its own distinct advantages. But then there's also this newborn paradigm of running databases or stateful applications on Kubernetes, which really frees you from this, advent of getting into a lock-in space of a particular type of offering. It's truly kind of, liberating to see that how Kubernetes can help you, stay afloat in terms of these lock-ins actually. Number 3 that you mentioned is that this whole adoption thing in the enterprise, right, is also growing. People are becoming more savvy towards bringing these solutions, experimenting and charging their batteries to kind of, get into this modern cloud native, landscape. So well said. I think thanks. I also wanted to, so we have Dipto. Dipto with an O and Dipta with an A. Hi, both of you. Dipto, you are leading the sales engineering role, and Dipto, you are leading the solutions engineering role, right? Right. Dipto, from your perspective, how are you seeing the trends in the market when you reach out to your customers or partners? How are things looking like, right? Are people really buying into this idea?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Amber. So yeah, asking for the question actually, because I'm really happy to answer that. The main reason is as a sales engineer, what do? We go inbound, we go outbound, and we have several other events where we go and pitch our product. And from my experience, when people come to inbound, they're like, okay, we need this solution, and how we can, use this specifically for our use case. So that's the case. So in that case, when we provide the solution, most of the cases, what we see, they're like, wow, we didn't know that we can do it that way or this much easily. So that's the situation where we feel like, okay, we are doing something in the Kubernetes and the Kubernetes space that is really being helpful to that. And let's say for outbound, when we reach these to some of the people and say, okay, as you are using or running your systems in Kubernetes, we have this solution. And when they know about it, first, like, they're like little bit, they think, okay, can we do this really? So when we provide our data sheet or use cases, or maybe we do a meeting, they're like, okay, that's cool, we are doing this, that's really good. So actually that charges up. As a sales engineer, we feel very sort of proud that yes, we are doing something great. And one thing I'd specifically mention, that is when we go to the events. Let's say last year I was in Kubernetes Community Days Bangalore, and Deepta, he was in Cube India, and we do these things all across the world. So when I was in Kubernetes Community Days Bangalore, we just got to the event, got to the venue. We were just setting up the booth, and there are people like, okay, it's like a database management in Kubernetes. Yeah, that's cool. And we didn't get the time to, set up the booth, and they were like, okay, I want to know about this, I want to schedule a meeting. So that's how the response. I'm not exaggerating. I'm just really saying what I face day to day, and people are really, as Tamal said, people are really adopting this, and they are being savvy to these sort of solutions. So yeah, from my perspective, yes, database as a service in the Kubernetes space, it's a huge, future and huge prospect. So yeah, I'm really very happy that we are working on this space. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Dipta, your thoughts as a solutions engineering lead. What do you have to say? What do you work on? We know that Kubernetes development is key and crucial. But tell me about how do you go about developing these products?
Okay, so I want to mention one first thing, that there is so many lookalike solutions in the marketplace, first of all, and I used quite a few of them, and their solution is I think I used quite a few, but what we're providing in this Kubernetes arena, that easily deployment and our day-to operations and all of the things we are doing is quite easily. And what we are doing is providing customers that free feeling that we can use use our product so much simply, and deployment make quite easier. Also, I was in the Cube Day India last time, and I faced the same situation as Dipto faced. That people ask that our products quite a few, and we know that our we have that responses in our side, and we are providing some goods for our customers and our clients. So we have that thought that we have to do better than the other solutions do, and also the other operators and other products related to our solutions. and they are not doing as much as we can and as much as we support. So I think it's really important that we have that clients or customers faith on that, and I think our solutions is one of the best in the market, and also we are providing that faith on our existing customers and our prospecting clients, so that they believe in our products, and we are developing for good for them actually.
Fantastic. Tamal, I've gone to the kubedb.com website, and I just look at the range of supported databases.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised to see not only the front runners, let's say MySQL, MariaDB, MongoDB, Percona's ExtraDB, Redis, OpenSearch, Elasticsearch, Memcache, Postgres, Kafka. I mean, you have everything under the hood right now.
Yeah.
And the list, as I hear from you, will soon include a RabbitMQ operator as well. Now, with so much happening, how do you manage this thing, and what's your kind of future outlook? Quickly, and then I'll roll over to Don to actually have some very interesting thoughts for you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when we started on this journey, right, like wanted to build a product that you can use to manage all your data applications on Kubernetes. We looked at this kind of, if you use a product, you want to be able to manage all your databases, because in this day and age, nobody just have a single type of database, right? Maybe you are using Postgres for some of the primary data, maybe Mongo for some of the other databases, maybe a Redis cache, maybe Elasticsearch or OpenSearch for your logging, and eventually maybe Kafka or RabbitMQ. So eventually, if in a kind of, let's say, interesting large organizations, you end up with a lot of different type of databases naturally. And once you start to adopt a product like KubeDB, we wanted to make sure that we can take care of all aspects of those databases. And plus, when you are using our product, we wanted to offer like a uniform experience. So like, let's say, all of these are based on this custom resource or CRD based. And if you know how to use like one database with our KubeDB CRD based approach, essentially the same ideas just translate to other databases. Obviously, the operator under the hood handles all the differences and whatnot, but like let's not sort of you want to scale up a database, you want to increase disk, you want to upgrade the versions, all those aspects kind of behave the same way. So that way, as a user, it really reduces your kind of the brain cognition load you need to kind of actually do this kind of work, right? So because and that's kind of where we came to the conclusion, and we just feel like if as we hear more from our user base, like hey, if you have this database support or that database support, and as we hear, we kind of started adding, and now we have quite a few database support, and we hope to add more actually. So yeah.
Fantastic. Any couple of words on the emergence of this new age, the whole momentum around Gen AI and LLMs, and with the breed of that new age solutions coming in, the data services, especially with the introduction of RAGs and whatnot, vector databases, there's a whole new, wrapper set coming on. I know that, the team would be at AppsCode thinking about it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Gen AI is all the hype right now, and everybody is excited to see it. I mean, there's from our sort of space, I would say there are quite a few databases that open source and managing this vector databases, Postgres, which is like you have all these extensions that you can use to manage them. So yeah, so I would say naturally over time we'll probably see some support for some of those, but it's still a little early for us to add support. We kind of just the things that people have been always using, right? Like all the existing stuff. That's where we kind of make sure that those things are all covered before we jump into more of the current cycle of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. Don, I would like you to kind of, speak your mind freely, given your experience with several, data services companies and whatnot. Over to you, Don.
25 years of dealing with DBAs, yes. That's one of the things so I've been around for a while. I've got a long history with legacy databases and, of course, then legacy database administrators. It's I've spent a good part of my career trying to help guide them to act and behave like developers and start adopting good software development skills. I don't know. I'm interested in finding out how you guys are doing getting those folks to change, because infrastructure engineers and database administrators seem to be the most change-averse group of folks that I know. I actually had a major retail company gentleman who runs a NoSQL. I won't say which NoSQL. Runs a NoSQL, and I was talking to him about running that NoSQL on Kubernetes, and he goes, "I'm never running that on Kubernetes. I run on physical direct attach, and that's it. I am not moving this. I've got all my scripts set up. I don't want to touch anything. It's working." And I'm just interested to hear some of the perspectives that you guys are seeing. I love running database on Kubernetes. First time I did a SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server deploy, HA on Kubernetes. Like, there's no way I'm ever going back to the old way of setting up SQL Server. This is awesome, but I'm more of a developer, not a DBA. So it's interesting to hear some of the stories you have.
Yeah, sure, Don. So yeah, I mean, this is actually, I would say quite an interesting topic, right? I think the first thing I would say, like, when you are talking about legacy, I mean, the word I hear is basically is business critical, right? It's the stuff that makes companies money, and that's why it keeps everybody employed, and that's why it's still there even after many, many, many years. So, and that's kind of where, when you introduce Kubernetes into this kind of environment, I think the first thing I would say is, like, once you kind of, peel off that hype and you actually look at what is really happening with Kubernetes, again, it is just the Linux servers, right? Let's say you are, running a pod or container on Kubernetes and attach a volume. At first, it looks very kind of fancy. You write these YAMLs and things just happen. But if you look really under the hood, it's still doing the same thing maybe you were doing before, right? There is this server, maybe a physical or a VM, a volume gets attached to it, using some kind of mount command, and then you kind of expose that command VM into, that disk into this container, and then you're running your container, which is basically a Linux process with some namespaces wrapped around it, right? So once somebody can kind of, goes through that, journey, like who has been familiar with kind of the, the previous generation, just a non-Kubernetes way of doing things, and goes through this journey, okay, how things are actually working on Kubernetes, it becomes, at least for me, it was pretty straightforward. Okay, this is really just doing what I was doing before, but now it's just basically HTTP API and a YAML interface wrapped around it, right? And things are a little bit more dynamic, meaning like, I don't have to go to like a actual SSH into a machine and do stuff, but I can just tell it this API server, that's a Kubernetes API server, and its agent, which is the kubelet, is just going to go and do that for me on the machine, right? So basically, it's kind of like a, giving you kind of an autopilot, right? Like it gives you a helping hand to do the thing that you were doing before, but now it's better, more in a programmatic way, maybe more easily scriptable, and potentially more, failure tolerant, right? If something goes wrong, there's a way to kind of, just get rid of it and get a new machine and things like that. So I would say, like, folks who are kind of, have been doing it in the, sort of in the old, previous sort of generation way, as they kind of actually get through this learning phase. I would say that Kubernetes does have this initial learning phase, and it can feel, in some ways scary or could be annoying, because once you already know and very good at doing something in a way, it gives you a new way of doing things, but it's slightly different, and it just takes a bit of a time to kind of get through it. You kind of, then it really becomes fun, right? Like now, if you want to run a database, okay, in the previous day, you probably have to wait maybe, 15-30 minutes to get VMs up and running, all of that. Now you apply YAML, maybe within 2-3 minutes, your high availability database is running, and it has
and consistently.
And it is consistently, right? Like you can run it again in another namespace, maybe another cluster, maybe another cloud. It just same thing starts working, and that's when you get the magic. Okay, this is not doing, it's not, like eliminating all the knowledge or experience that you have. It's just adding to that and making it possible to do. You actually gives you more power, right? It's kind of to do more stuff and saves you time. And that's where, even products like KubeDB is handy, because it's really, taking that kind of the boring part, the laborious part of getting things up and running easy. But then if you are a DBA, if you're still, like, let's say your application team needs a, schema migration, maybe, move a 100 gig table to another place. That's not done by the operator or anything, right? You still have to work with them. You still have to do all those things, go through the whole process of how, you have to do all this planning, like, how the migration goes well, how it works, not. So all those aspects of a DevOps or database administrator's work or role is still there. It's just the boring part, the part that, really probably not fun and just time consuming, gets easy, makes your life easy to do those things, right? So that's why I would say, as people start to see it, you kind of, it becomes easier to adopt, right? Like, and the change is always hard, but then once you see the benefit, it becomes easier to accept that and then start your repertoire of tools, right, that you can use.
Thanks a lot, Tamal and team. Thanks, Don. I think it has been a pleasure of having you with us, highlighting the past, present, and future, and really instilling that, that perspective that will drive the adoption of, similar techniques in the world out there. But again, knowing Apps Code as a company and the wonderful products that you have, I think this can only go in the right manner, right uphill, actually. So yeah, fantastic. What we're going to do is, I will also introduce you to the scenarios. So while we had this conversation, we will be doing a live lab, introducing 3 prominent solutions from Apps Code, and that will be the next video. And that's going to be about KubeDB, performing or provisioning MySQL and MongoDB. I mean, there are tens of others, but we will focus on these 2, where database as a service on Kubernetes with KubeDB operator, giving us that resource for MySQL and MongoDB. The application as such will be SockShop. You can use any example, any exhibit, but SockShop gives us that polyglot way of looking at things. So I think it's a wonderful classic example. So we modified the templates in a way from the standard ones to accommodate or to work with KubeDB, and we'll see that. Second is database backup and recovery is also a critical topic in the industry because of the significance it kind of provides to the application, and availability is a key question mark. So we will be working with KubeStash, which is built on top of Restic, to actually work in tandem with various backends. It could be object storage or whatever, to do this database backup and restore from an application standpoint. Third is security is paramount in the space of applications, and within Kubernetes there's a lot of shared things going on. So secrets management is a very key and crucial aspect of deploying applications in Kubernetes. So In that regard, there's another product called as Kube Vault, which is a high-level abstraction or operator for HashiCorp's Vault engine. And this is going to be the triage of bringing KubeDB, KubeStash, and Kube Vault, and mixing it up, mashing it up to actually create a wonderful scenario, which will have other things: sock shop application, ingress controller from Nginx, Metal LB, CSI integrations from Dell's leading storage portfolio from PowerFlex software-defined storage, which could run on-premises as appliances, physical machines or whatever, or also in the cloud with Apex block storage for AWS or Azure. So you could have the SDS component running anywhere that you like. So we will render the static persistence, the dynamic persistence, through CSI integration for the databases provided by KubeDB to be persisted on PowerFlex, number one. Second, we will also bring in ECS, Dell ECS, which is a object storage of sorts. And again, very powerful platform, very reliable, proven expertise around that. And use that in combination with KubeStash to perform database backup and recovery. So that's the context of where we will be leading this conversation into. Till then, I will thank the team again and see you on the next video. Thank you.
Thank you.